I'm Eric with Catastrophy Magazine. We're here with Dirk Hagner.
Very true.
Yeah. We're checking out his artwork that he's doing, and in the form of, what would this be called?
Actually, it's a general category. It works on paper, and this particular is printmaking. Printmaking, you know, an old artistic process, about 500 years old. And so that's what I'm doing mostly. And there's a number of different ways to make prints. And what I'm standing above here is kind of like the oldest one. It's called the relief print. And it's a very simple principle. It's you have a piece of wood, and you draw your picture on the wood, and you cut away what you don't want to print, because effectively you lower the surface. So after you cut your image into the wood block, you have a brayer like this, which has an ink on it, which is kind of not runny but like stiff and sticky. And when you roll it on, it's obvious that it only sticks to the top parts and not the lower parts. So, and then after you ink it all up, you can put a piece of paper against. And what I do, I use this little doohickey, an old wooden doorknob, and just rub the paper against the wood. Now some people use presses for that. I don't like the presses for the woodcut, because usually the wood is somewhat warped, because it's just like, you know, natural material.
So it doesn't go on.
And it could split the block.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you have too much pressure on it, the grain that I want to show actually will be crushed. You know, after like a few prints, it would be over.
Mm.
So by doing it by hand, actually takes longer, but I have more control with how much pressure and where I rub longer or more intense in other areas. So I can control more of the what the wood does to the picture. So it's a it looks loose in a lot of ways, but it's really not that loose, because see, when I cut, you really have to push a lot of materials away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the wood usually has a mind of its own. I mean, being wood, it has, and this is softwood, it's like pine boards. And you know, softwood has like the pulpwood, which is the soft part of the wood, and then has those wood markings, which actually is the harder part of the wood.
Mm-hmm.
So if you cut with the grain, it's fairly easy cutting. If you cut against the grain,
you're not going to get very far at all.
well, it goes easy in the softer parts,
Mm-hmm.
but then harder in the hard parts. So in other words, you want to do a line, but then the wood tells a little bit where you can go and where you can't go. So it's kind of a collaboration really between the material and
So it's like
the artist himself.
like working on a bunch of different surfaces all combined in one.
Right. So it's kind of like compared to like you kind of do a dance with the material.
Mm-hmm.
And it can go all the way from being something really beautiful, or it can fall flat on your face. You have to listen to the material and see what it does. And in that collaboration, I think something good can come out of this stuff. It can look really unlike anything else when you can't draw it like this because of this process.
Basically, what kind of tools do you use for?
Oh, those are very simple. The same tools I always have been using. You can use a simple knife, actually, from like a carpet knife would work, and some artists have worked with that. This is like it's called a U gouge. It's like a U profile, and they come in different width, you know. And these happen to be Japanese tools, which are really great tools. They're not too expensive. But they're also extremely sharp. I mean, they use a sharper steel than available here in the US. So the other thing is, when you print the way I do, which is by hand really, if you have a thick paper, which is traditionally in Europe, they have like thicker papers, printmaking papers, you can't really do this by hand either, for the same reason. There's not enough pressure you can put on the piece. So I'm using very thin paper, usually Japanese paper, which is very thin but also extremely strong. It comes from the bark of the mulberry tree. And it's very traditional, very strong paper, and so you really can give it many times, because when I do more than one color, each time I have to do the process
all over.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so this is the print from the block we just looked at after it's, when that's completed, it's finished. And so I think orange or green, one of these was printed first, and I think the blue after. The blue also sits underneath the black. It's kind of important because everybody knows it from commercial printing actually. It's called a rich black. If you just print black on the paper, have it next to the color, the black actually is kind of washed out. It's kind of like more on the gray side. By having color underneath, the impact of the black is much stronger. So knowing that, I planned so that the blue is really sitting under the black areas as well. So that's where it comes together, and hopefully the registration is correct, that no crucial parts are kind of like overprinted in the wrong way. Right, this is another piece I've done in letterpress. In my work I have like a couple of influences. One is in general Asian influence, particularly from Japan, in terms of the sense of space they have. They really changed when Japan opened in the 1850s. It really had a huge impact, and still does, on the European and therefore American perspective in art. For example, I mean, like museums, they used to hang picture one next to the other, called the and you see in all the old pictures, that's how museums like in the Louvre and stuff would show pictures. Not after you know, Japan opened and they saw like, now it's like one wall, one picture, space around. It's this whole sense, of space that they introduced into our or contributed to the art world in general. So I made this portrait made of letters, because it's also letterpress. Letterpress is like the old type, right? And you ink it the same way like the woodblock print. And everything that's high will print, and everything else is cut away. So this is a landscape. It's called written landscape, and I had it mounted on like a Chinese scroll, like on silk. But that's the piece here, and it's basically the word land repeated over and over again, and me in the middle of it. And there's the horizon, and it's called a written landscape because it's made out of words.
How many prints over and over did you do?
From this one I made 20. Yeah, so it's a one plate that I made with the land, and then I printed it twice in two different colors. Then I did from the metal type the word me, and then added this horizon line. So we're looking at it upside down right now. And this is like a chop mark I use frequently of different sizes in my work. Also comes from the Japanese and Chinese art scene, basically, and it really helps in the composition of the page. You know, it's like an element, and this has my initials in there.
That's awesome.
So, and then the cool thing about scrolls, of course, they don't take any space. So I was thinking I put everything on scrolls, because I can store it easily, more easily. Seeing that's all there's to that.
So how long altogether have you been doing letter printing and
all those printing things?
Yeah.
Actually, all the stuff you see I've been doing in the last 6 years.
End up getting into this style of art.
You mean printmaking?
Yeah.
Well, I would say it's kind of like, I would have to say it's kind of with mother's milk. And that comes from growing up in Germany, where printmaking started about 500 years ago, and started in a heavy way. Those were like big time Renaissance artists that invented this process, so to speak, for at least in Western Europe. And that happening in Germany and spreading from there, kind of everybody in Germany knows about it. It's like soccer, you know, kind of everybody is into it. Not like soccer, not that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like my mom knows what a woodcut is, you know?
Yeah.
Most people here don't, because they didn't grow up with that. So and for me it was kind of natural. I like to draw, and when I went to art school, printmaking became just a natural extension, a continuation of drawing. Actually, a more deliberate way of drawing, because it's not as loose as drawing. So you have to make more, as you saw with the cutting, more deliberate decisions what to cut, but not. Also, it's much less forgiving. In the woodblock, either you cut it or you don't. There's no gray in between. So you have to make a kind of gutsy decisions. But there's other aspects that I like about printmaking in particular, which is there's a social aspect. You saw that in the letterpress piece about the Carmina Burana. Ever since printmaking like that became popular, it was very easy to make a lot of social commentary without nobody would find out who did it. It's like the leaflets kind of. Before you had to handwrite everything, you know. Nobody could write anyhow or read. But once Gutenberg invented the letterpress, which just a short time after the woodcut was invented, things really took off. I mean, like there were like flyers and broadsheets against popes and kings and nobility, and they really shocked them. They smashed presses and stuff and tried to control it. A little bit like the internet when it started, you know? But no way, you couldn't stop that anymore. And so all kind of like interesting images and social criticism, printing always was part of that. They were always on the, you know, against the powers that be. It was always part of printmaking. I always liked that. And it's still today. If you go to a printmaking show, you see a lot of things about the current war and all those issues, you know. I mean, they don't shy away from making political and social commentary. So I think it's an important function in art, in my opinion.
So, do you have a website?
Yes, actually, I just put one up, and yes, I do. It's www.dirkhagner.com. Simple as that. DIRKHAGNER. That's right.
Awesome.
So do visit it, and there's more info, more pictures, and some of the processes and other stuff.
Cool.
That'd be cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much
for
your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.